This is my presentation on Imaps and DNS. We'll start off with Imap, and Imap is the Internet Mail Access Protocol. It allows users to access and maintain hierarchical collections of email folders on a remote server over the internet. It uses secure socket layers, SSL, to communicate between a client and a Linux mail server. So the first thing we would do when configuring Imaps is install dovecot, because that's how we're going to be doing it on Linux. So we'd use the command sudo apt update, and then sudo apt install dovecot core and dovecot imapd. Then we would enable Imaps in dovecot, so we'd edit the dovecot directory under etc and ensure the following. So the following of the protocols all the way down to the SSL key is how we would want it to look. And then after that, we would restart dovecot with sudo systemctl restart dovecot, and then verify with an nmap scan on port 993. So for some hardening recommendations, for one, you want to disable plain text authentication. You do that in the etc folder again, and hit yes for disable plain text authentication. For second, you want to use strong SSL/TLS configuration. So you again would update the etc file and make sure the SSL protocol is TLS 1.2 version. And then for the third one, you want to limit user access and logging. So you can do that by sudo nano editing that and then that log path. Okay, so moving on to DNS. DNS on Windows will be configured with IIS, and for Linux is going to be configured with postfix. So DNS is an industry standard protocol providing computer name to IP address mapping and name resolution services to computers and users. DNS is the default name resolution service used in most networks. DNS is part of the TCP/IP protocol suite, and all TCP/IP network connections are by default configured with the IP address of at least one DNS server in order to perform name resolution on the network. Essentially, it's a network service that translates human-readable domain names, like google.com, into a machine-readable IP addresses, allowing computers to connect to websites and other internet resources by sending queries to designate DNS servers to find the corresponding IP address for a given domain name, especially acting as a phone book over the internet. So DNS finds that IP address for us. So to configure DNS on Windows IIS, you're going to first install DNS. So we would open the server manager, hit add roles and features, and install the DNS server. We would then configure a forward lookup zone. So open the DNS manager, right click forward lookup zones, and then hit a new zone. Follow the wizard and create a new zone. We would start DNS service and verify. So we would do that in command prompt get service DNS, and then we would test the using on NS lookup. to test if it's running correctly. So for the hardening recommendations for Windows, 1, you would disable recursion to prevent cache poisoning. So to do that, we would open DNS Manager, right-click Server, Properties, disable recursion. For the second hardening recommendation, we would limit zone transfers. So for this, we would set only to specified servers in zone transfer settings. And we would enable DNS SEC for security. Enable DNS SEC signing on zones for integrity. So to configure DNS on Linux via postfix, we would first install postfix. We would do this by sudo apt update and then sudo apt install postfix. We would then configure postfix for DNS. We would do this by editing the etc in the postfix main.cf. My host name equals whatever you want it to. The domain would be whatever domain, and the origin would be whatever domain you wanted it to, and the interfaces would be set to all. And then finally, you would restart postfix using the sudo systemctl restart postfix command. So hardening recommendations for DNS on Linux. For 1, we would disable Open Relay. So to do that, we would edit the etc postfix folder and have the SMTPD recipient restrictions equal the permit _ my networks and reject unauthorized destination. Then for similar to a lot of our other hardening recommendations, we would enable TLS encryption. We would do that by sudo postconf command, encrypt it. And then for the third hardening recommendation, we would just limit access. For that, we would do sudo postconf and then do the interfaces to loopback only. So to test all these, just to review, we would run Imap to verify that Imaps is on port 993, and for on DNS, port 53 are listening. So that's what we want to look on the Nmap runs, and then we can also test DNS using nslookup or dig. So we also want to test those and make sure that they are functioning correctly. And then finally, I have my works cited on where I got my sources, and that is all. Thank you.